Welcome to Everyone Loves Guitar, where we sit down and talk with interesting professional guitar players, uncover their stories, and discover what makes them tick. If you love guitar, music, and the backstory of people's lives, stick around. You're in the right place. This episode of Everyone Loves Guitar is brought to you by Taylor Guitars and their new Grand Pacific Round Shoulder Dreadnought. Powered by Taylor's breakthrough V-Class bracing system, the Grand Pacific gives you a warm, seasoned sound with clear low-end power and notes that are stronger, longer sustaining, and more in tune with each other all the way up the fretboard. Make sure you check it out online at taylorguitars.com, then go out and play one today. That's the new Grand Pacific at taylorguitars.com. Did you know if your instrument or any of your gear is damaged, broken, or stolen outside your home, your homeowner's insurance policy will not cover any of it? That's right. Homeowner's insurance only pays if something happens inside your home. But Music Pro Insurance insures all your music gear, no matter where it is, anywhere in the world, even when you check it in as baggage on an airline. Here, let me give you some examples. Let's say you're in a car accident and your equipment is damaged, you're covered. Your kid pours apple juice into your amplifier, covered. Someone spills beer all over your pedal board at a gig somewhere across the world, boom, you're covered. Any kind of theft or accidental damage is covered, even water damage from hurricanes and breakage from earthquakes. But here's what makes Music Pro really different. They're not going to argue with you over the value of your instrument or make you run around looking for receipts when it comes time to paying your claim. They know exactly why your vintage instrument is worth 10 times more than a new one. Plus, all claims are typically paid and fully settled in 24 to 48 hours. So if your equipment is not insured properly, go to musicproinsurance.com, hit standard, then enter your information and get a free gear protection estimate. Don't be that player who ignores this, and then next month when something happens, you're wondering why you didn't take 10 minutes to do this properly. Make sure you go to musicproinsurance.com, enter your information, and get a free gear protection estimate. If something happens, you will be thanking me. Trust me on this. musicproinsurance.com. The Be Fulfilled Journal helps you be more honest with yourself and with others, and be more open to handling things you've avoided dealing with for years. It's a 12-week online and journal program that helps you identify and eliminate things you do that are causing you stress and live in more gratitude and joy. It was actually developed by a long-term friend of mine who got sober in 2008, and he's put together a great deal just for my listeners. You get the 300-page hardcover journal and access to the 12-week video program online, plus free shipping, plus membership in a private Facebook support group with others going through the program, plus a 5-day mini course showing you how to let go of stuff that's draining your energy, plus a 30-day 100% money-back guarantee. To start your journey and get all the bonuses, go to BeFulfilledJournal.com/ELG. That's BeFulfilledJournal.com/ELG. For more information on advertising on Everyone Loves Guitar, go to everyonelovesguitar.com/advertise. That's everyonelovesguitar.com/advertise. Hey, everybody, this is Craig Garber. Welcome to Everyone Loves Guitar. And, man, we got just a tremendous guest today, and just an incredible, a really talented musician whose solo album is busting out today, so timing is great. Today, the day this is released, we're with the one and only Damon Johnson, who spearheaded Brother Kane. He's literally a triple threat as a guitarist, singer, and songwriter. And man, you know what? Your guitar playing is so good, you're probably get overlooked as you're singing. And I'm like listening, I'm like, God, this guy's voice. Because I went back and listened to like some of the older stuff as well. I was like, God, this shit is great. Anyway,
thank you.
Thank you. Since his early days of fronting Brother Kane and scoring 3 number-1 singles on rock radio in the 90s, Got No Shame and Fool Shine On and I Lie in the Bed I Make. Fool Shine On is one of the greatest songs of the 90s for sure. With that band, he honed his craft with relentless touring and support slots opening up for Van Halen, Aerosmith, Robert Plant, and dozens of other great bands. Since the early 2000s, Damon's co-written songs for Stevie Nicks, Carlos Santana, Steven Tyler, and Sammy Hagar. He toured the world for several years as Alice Cooper's guitarist. Damn, he always gets the great guitar players. And in 2011, he joined legendary Irish rock group Thin Lizzy. In 2013, the core of that band, the Thin Lizzy Band, morphed into a new group called Black Star Riders, and they released 3 well-received albums, of which Damon co-wrote all the songs. His much-anticipated full-length solo album, as I mentioned, is called Memoirs of an Uprising. It's a very cool record, got some killer tunes on there. It is being released today. So right now, before anything else comes up and before anything gets in your mind, go check it out immediately on damonjohnson.com and hang in there. We'll tell you some other ways to look at it. Dude, thank you so much for coming on the show. I appreciate your time.
Craig, it's a pleasure, man. It's a pleasure. I'm grateful to our mutual friend Chris for hooking us up, and thank you for that. That sounded like a pretty dazzling resume you just read off.
That was pretty badass, dude. Well, we're going to talk about this 3 number 1 hits, but yeah, man, I want to thank Chris Nix, the wonderful, totally cool Chris Nix, man, for hooking us up. All right. So what were you doing before Brother Cane, like musically, and how did that come together?
Well, I went to high school in a really small town in Northeast Alabama called Geraldine. And it's where my mom was from originally, and we had a chance to kind of move back up there. My dad, he was a traveling farm equipment salesman, so he kind of covered the Alabama and Georgia territories. And so I had a little garage band and did what we all did, man. Fell in love with rock, and when I found some like-minded guys, and we started making some noise, and so I kind of progressed, I guess you would say, quickly, because I remember right out of high school, I got an offer to play with some guys. They were older than me. They had already been doing some touring. That led to another band with a similar story. And then I had a unique opportunity to be the guitar player in a house band in a town called Gunnersville. It's a beautiful lake community. And so I played in that band for about 2 years. The band was called Headline. And the guy that owned the bar was also the lead singer in this band. And his name was Pat Upton. And Pat had actually gone to school with my mom. Pat had a successful career in the music business, Craig. Pat was a member of a band back in 1970 called The Spiral Staircase.
Yeah.
They had a giant hit. Yeah. The song was called I Love You More Today Than Yesterday.
I remember that. I love you more. I know that song, man. That was a
great pop songs.
Yeah.
Ever.
Very cool song.
So, Pat, I had heard about my whole life. He was like, totally a rock star, man. And I remember my cousins and relatives, having, the copy of the album, and we would see the photo, and I was like, wow, that guy's from here. So imagine the thrill for me that Pat moves back to Alabama and opens this bar, music venue, puts a band together, and I'm the guitar player. And again, all these guys were older and had great, music libraries. And I just remember this would have been like 1984, 85, 86, right in there. And we played everything, a lot of the hits, radio hits of the day, if it was Journey or I remember we did some Todd Rundgren songs. We did a lot of Motown. Pat was big into Stevie Wonder and just that whole genre, R&B and soul. Great high-pitched voice, so he could sing Smokey Robinson stuff and things like that. So what a great experience for this kid who was at home, away from the gig, learning Randy Rhoads and Eddie Van Halen and Frank Marino, and then I got into Steve Lukather and Larry Carlton and stuff like that. So that was all happening, and then unexpectedly, Craig, I got an offer to join a band that was based out of Birmingham, This band was called Split the Dark, and they were a regional big deal. I had seen them play the colleges. My first wife, she went to college at Auburn for about a year, so I would go down to see her. And after the football games, you'd go to fraternity row, and every frat house had a band. And I used to see Split the Dark all the time, and they were playing deep cuts, man, by Yes and Steely Dan and Billy Joel and stuff beyond just what all the other bands were playing. So it really fit with my headspace at that time as a young guitar player. And so incredible to me, those guys heard about me. I think the singer had seen me play at a random gig one time, and he and his manager called me and asked if I'd be interested in joining their band, which was, brother, I couldn't have been more excited if David Bowie had a call.
That's awesome, man.
That I was. So that opportunity precipitated, my move to Birmingham with my family, and I had one young child at that time, and so Split the Dark, man. We started playing regionally. We would go to places like Little Rock, Arkansas, and we would play Chattanooga and Atlanta, and go down to Pensacola, Florida, and kind of on a regular basis. And actually, some recording. That was my first exposure to some songwriting and things like that.
So you hadn't written songs before that?
No, I hadn't.
Wow.
And as much as I was a fan of songs, I just thought it was beyond my reach. That was beyond my skill set. I was so consumed with guitar, really, Craig, that I was, and it's not even that I was like, well, I got to practice. I just did practice. I just loved it. You couldn't get it out of my hand. So the guitar playing, after I reached a certain level of technique, I felt like it kind of came easy for me. So then to play with people like Pat Upton and those guys, and then to play with Split the Dark, I was just like, okay, man, I'm doing this. I'm making a decent living, doing music full time, still not thinking about doing anything on my own. Well, then in 88 and 89, I had the unique experience of playing in two different bands. Both bands had major record deals. Both bands had already recorded their album, and they needed to put a band together to go out and tour and promote. So the first of those bands in 88 was a band out of Atlanta, and Witness was on Arista Records. Clive Davis had signed them. The real talent there was the singer Debbie Davis, just an incredibly powerful voice. The songs were certainly in my wheelhouse, they'd even had Neil Schon and Brad Gillis had played some of the guitar on the actual album. And, it was a good feature for a guy with a Kramer and a Floyd Rose and an EMG pickup and a Marshall half stack. It's like, all right, this is a great place. And Debbie was just badass singer. They had some infrastructure. I was like, all right, man, this is a shot I need to take. I need to go and do this.
Well, plus you're moving up the sort of like the food chain now as well. You went from local band to very strong regional band. Now you're like record company signed deal, all that kind of stuff. That's great.
Exactly. And then, Witness had a video that got played on, what was the hard rock video?
It was MTV and
Headbangers Ball.
Headbangers Ball. Yeah. Ricky.
Headbangers
whatever.
Ball.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, as happens to a lot of bands, the label, they throw one single against the wall to see if it sticks. And if it doesn't stick, you might be out of business. And that's literally what happened to that band. When the first single didn't happen, that was kind of it from the label standpoint. And, we just weren't working enough. And all of a sudden, another opportunity crossed my desk. And this time it was a band out of Memphis, Tennessee, called the Delta Rebels. And this was really pivotal for me because the singer in that band was a real character. His name was R.T. Scott. R.T. had been like a local legend in the West Memphis, North Mississippi area, had been playing in the honky tonks and bars his whole life. And he was such a potpourri of influences, man. I mean, you know, from a physical image standpoint, he was like a cross between Ronnie Van Zant and Bon Scott.
Holy shit.
And lived it, you know, Harley rider, played biker parties, was beloved by all those kinds of fans, man. So, but RT really took to me and taught me so much, Craig, about songwriting. He said, he's the first person that ever said to me, he says, hey man, it's great that you're a very talented guitar player, but if you don't learn to write songs, that's going to be the limit of what you're going to be able to do, is just play in somebody else's band or play on somebody else's record. Not a bad way to make a living, but
that was really kind of him
it was kind of him. And he would sit with me and he'd say, hey man, what you got? I go, oh, this is a riff I wrote this morning. And man, in 15 minutes, you know, he'd have a bunch of lyrics, and, you know, he's a great storyteller. Again, man, a character, almost like a David Allan Coe kind of guy. And, you know, man, RT had his own history with, you know, substance abuse and alcohol. And, you know, it was hard for him. And, you know, when you're just, and that band got signed to, it was Polydor record, or Polygram. Same story, man. You know, big budget, big sounding record, great musicians from Memphis played on it. Greg Morrow was the drummer that played on all those tracks. And
yeah,
Greg,
why do I know that guy?
Well, Greg's a legend in Nashville, man. He's played on
Nashville.
Thousands of recordings. You know, worked a long time. He was Faith Hill's drummer. He was in Amy Grant's band for a while. Now he's on tour with Bob Seger right now. He didn't leave Nashville and the studio unless it's really worth his while. So I'm sure Bob Seger's here, Greg, to have a guy of that stat. So, you know, man, again, rubbing shoulders with just world-class talent. And so, unfortunately, the Delta Rebels also ran out of gas pretty fast. And I came back to Birmingham really ready to try and do my own thing. I had seen these two bands run out of gas quickly, and I felt like, well, hey, if those two bands can get record deals, I can do this. And I'm not going to have a substance abuse problem. I'm going to make good business decisions. I'm going to, you know, try to be frugal. I'm going to put a good band together, and everybody, let's be in as realistic of a headspace as we can be, but totally committed to working hard, and we're not going to give up no matter what. So
how old were you at the time? When you came back?
Was 90, so I would have been 25.
That's pretty pretty mature thinking for a 25-year-old, to be real honest with you.
Brother, as I told you, you know, I already had a daughter. My daughter Heather was born in 87, right about the time I started with Split the Dark. And then I had some good people around me at the time. One person in particular that became my manager in Brother Kane. His name is Conrad Rayfield. We're great friends to this day. And, you know, he not only believed in my talent, but I think he took a liking to my perspective, to my work ethic, to sort of my philosophy. You know, he had met my parents, and he's like, all right, man, this guy's got it together. He's not just looking for a handout. He's ready to work hard. And so Conrad was really key in helping me get Brother Kane started and off the ground. We had before it was called Brother Kane, the first band was called Child. And I was just a guitar player. We had a singer at the time. And I spent about 6 months with this guy, really hit it off with him. He had some experiences in the business too. So he came in with a couple of songs. He and I wrote 8 or 10 songs together. And really quickly, Craig, we had some good material. Conrad had helped us, you know, pay for some demos. And so I remember, this is really a key thing that I don't want to undervalue, is that when I was in the Delta Rebels, the attorney that had helped with that deal, I met him one day with RT, the singer, and the attorney's name was Fred Davis. Well, Fred not insignificantly, happened to be the son of Clive Davis.
Holy shit. Not a bad connection, man.
Not a bad connection, but, you know, the only time their paths really crossed in a business way was if Fred was representing some artist that Arista had signed.
Mm.
So I remember meeting Fred one day when I was still in the Delta Rebels, and I very studiously and responsibly, when the meeting was over, I said, Fred, do you have a card? You know, he said, sure, man. You know, whips it out, gives it to me. I stick it in my pocket. That was late 88, early 89. He probably never gave it another thought. So roll the clock forward to the latter part of 1990. We got this demo. We got a, you know, it's me and the singer, and I went to Conrad. No, Conrad calls me. He says, okay, now what? You know, what do we do now?
Because you got these demos of these 10 songs.
Yeah.
You're liking them.
We need somebody to shop this. So I said, hey, I have a phone number for this Fred Davis. And mind blowing. I called this giant law office in New York City, gave my name. And the receptionist says, hang on a minute. I'm sure she had to go, hey, Fred, there's somebody named Damon Johnson on the phone, said you would know him from the Delta Rebel. Sure enough, man, Fred clicks on, hey, Damon, I remember you. And I says, well, I'm glad you do. He goes, what's shaking? And I says, well, I got a band. I got some songs. I would be grateful if you would listen. And I think he was impressed that I kept up with this number and that I had the balls to just pick up the phone.
I'm impressed with that. That really, I mean, I give you credit for that, man. That's great.
Fred, very graciously, he said, okay, man, send it. Well, I'm the kind of guy that if someone like that says send it, before 5 o'clock that afternoon, I was at FedEx, cassette tape in the envelope, paid for overnight delivery. Yeah. And that thing was sitting on his desk, man, when he walked in the office.
That's the way to do it, bro. Yeah.
So it was only about a week or two, Craig, and Fred called back. He says, hey, man, I've listened to this tape. I like it. He said, I'm coming to Nashville. Could you and your singer drive up and meet me? And I said, of course. So Fred was staying at the Vanderbilt Plaza. I remember this, man, like it was yesterday. Comes down the elevator. I mean, dude, Fred's the real thing, man. Super New York, super hip, good guy. Comes over and sits with us. You know, man, we're just beatniks out of some, we're in our black stretch jeans and we got our cowboy boots on like we're in a Guns N' Roses video, biker jackets and smelling like beer, I'm sure. So he's like, guys, I think you got something. There's a couple of really great songs here. He goes, here's what I want you to do. Go back to Birmingham, get a drummer and a bass player, take a photo, get those guys rehearsed and ready. I'm going to shop this thing. And he said, I want you to do something very important for me. Whatever you do, make sure when you make these cassette tapes, he said, I want you to send me 20 tapes. Make sure that on the spine of all of them, it says, Child, Birmingham, Alabama. And I remember going, why do you want it to say Birmingham? Or wouldn't you want it to say, you know, Los Angeles or New York or something? He goes, hell no. He said, Damon, nobody is from Birmingham, Alabama. He said, just that fact alone is going to peg their interest. You know? And I was like, okay.
Very cool, all right, man. Holy shit. So you, like, how pumped were you? Like, if you could remember, how freaking pumped were you right there?
Well, I mean, I was pumped because I felt like we had opened another door.
Yeah.
I knew that we had opened another door. I knew we had a long way to go. There was nothing that was making me feel like, okay, this is going to happen. But I knew that we were working the process and that these were legitimate contacts. When Fred met my manager, Conrad, bro, they hit it off gangbusters, you know, because Conrad is a, you know, lifelong businessman, you know, college educated, gives good meetings. Let's put it that way, man. He was really impressive himself. So, you know, Fred was like immediately, okay, man, Damon's got not only the musical thing down, but he's got some infrastructure. He's got good representation. This is not going to be a waste of my time.
Yeah, right. As an as a package, there's little work that he is not a lot of remediation work he's going to have to do. You're pretty much ready to go. Yeah, which is really cool.
So really quickly, man, you know, we delivered on the things he asked for, and he started shopping the tape, and he got good feedback immediately. So what he did is he arranged for us to showcase. And I remember we did a big showcase in Atlanta, you know, where you play and there's easily 8, 10, 12 label reps at that. And then I remember we showcased for a couple labels in Nashville. We drove up and played in like a rehearsal space or something. Someone flew into Birmingham. And Craig, what was happening, man, is that the response had to do with our singer, you know, and their reaction was one of two things. They either said, I'm not sure about the singer, or they said, I don't like the singer, you know. And the thing about the singer, you know, he was a rock star, looked great, all of that stuff, man. But the tone of his voice was very shrill. And you got to remember, man, this is post Guns N' Roses, who I was obsessed with, man. Guns N' Roses, Appetite for Destruction was a real seismic event for me musically. And really about the songwriting more than even Slash's guitar playing, which was obviously epic.
Yeah.
So immediately we were like, okay, I don't know what we're going to do. You know, because I was friends with this guy.
That's a tough...
Yeah, we invested a lot of time and you know, bro, like I go back to how we started this thing, and you're reading my resume about all these bands I've been in. No one can argue my commitment to the band aesthetic. I've always wanted to be in a great band, a band that moved the needle, a band that made an impact, just like Zeppelin, just like the Black Crowes, just like Aerosmith, you know, whoever. So, I remember it was like, okay, there's one more showcase for you to do. We're going to go down to Auburn and play the supper club down there. We got this guy from Virgin Records coming. So we played for this guy. I just remember it being kind of non-special. Like we just got up there and did what we did. By that point, my attitude was getting to be not anger, but really like
frustrated. You know, I can understand. Yeah,
like I don't give a fuck what anybody thinks anymore, man. I know these songs are cool, and my band is cool, and I'm just gonna go up here and rock. And if this guy doesn't like it, he can shove it up his ass.
Sure.
You know,
totally.
I was really there. Well, another big event, man. You know, Conrad came down with this guy. His name was Aaron Jacobus. We shook hands. He said a few nice things, and they split and went back to Birmingham, which was about an hour and a half, you know, back up the street. So we played the rest of our set, Craig, and I was tearing down that night. The supper club, you know, you'd play super late because it was a college bar. It was like the after hours college bar. So when all the other bars closed, everybody could come. I remember tearing down the gear, and the bartender goes, "Hey, Damon, you got a phone call." And this was literally, man, 2 a.m. And it's Conrad. He goes, Deej, that's what he called me. Deej, this is what you're going to do. You're going to get some sleep, get a few hours. I want you to get up about 5:30, 6 o'clock. I want you to drive back to Birmingham. Aaron Jacobus wants to sign you.
Holy shit.
He wants to sign you to a development deal, but he's going to do it without your singer. He wants you and the drummer and the bass player to stay a unit, and he's going to help you find a singer. He really likes the songs, really likes your guitar playing, thinks you're a star. That's a phrase that got thrown around to so many musicians back then. Oh, they
think you're a star? That's funny, man.
Like, okay, whatever the hell that means. It's at least we're getting some traction. So, okay, whatever it takes. So I drove back, man. I'll never forget having breakfast with Aaron. And man, he was lit up like a Christmas tree with enthusiasm. And he started naming different songs and asking me about my guitar and my amps. It's like, man, that Marshall, have you had that Marshall a long time? I'm like, yeah, I've had it, and it's badass. He goes, well, you've got it down, man. So we're gonna cut some more demos. We're gonna try and find you a singer. So he started sending tapes from Los Angeles of all these different singers. And
how did you hang up? Back up 1 second. How did you you're standing there breaking this shit down. You're getting this phone call, and like that had to be like a really difficult conversation. Like to walk. Hey, by the way, we're all going up to.
Obviously, I didn't tell everybody the full story about it just being the three of us. That conversation came later. Plus, I needed to hear what this guy had to say, and because this again, man, I was exhausted. It's 2:00 in the morning.
Yeah.
I'm like, what? I got to get up in 3 hours and drive. Okay.
Oh, so you just went there yourself?
Just me.
Oh, okay. I thought you had to go down there with the other two guys. Okay, so, totally. No, I get it. All right. Yeah.
Just me. The guys stayed behind, and then they came back in the van with all the gear. I took one of the other cars and drove back to Birmingham. And it was hard for me to tell my friend what was up, but he was great. He took it really great. And I'll never forget him saying to me then, he said, Damon, don't forget about your own voice. He goes, you're a good singer yourself. And I said, I appreciate you saying that. I said, but I'm not interested. It's never, ever, ever crossed my mind that I wanted to be in the center stage behind the microphone. Not interested. I'm going to be Jimmy Page. And I'm going to find that guy to write songs with. And so without getting too long-winded, Craig, we spent the next 6-8 months funneling through cassette tapes that would come. And each tape would be accompanied with a photo. And every dude we got was either trying to be John Bon Jovi or they were trying to be Axl Rose. So I went with an Axl Rose guy who was fucking good guy, good dude, talented. He had been in a band in Los Angeles, and I heard some of their songs, and I loved some of the songs and the energy of it. And I was like, okay, man, all right. So when he flew out, man, he gets off the plane, tatted up, good looking dude. And I'm just like, yes! This is a guy. We're going to do this, man. I've got development money. I've got a manager. Now I had a really badass band, man. The drummer in this band was fucking Alex Van Halen, man. Literally. Like 3 bass drums in the big cage. And, so in central Alabama at that point, bro, people are talking about it.
Yeah, that's not.
Guys are doing it. They're on fire. And, what ultimately happened, it was sort of some of the same with this singer. And he and I are friends to this day. We stay in touch and really learned a lot from him because he was a very, very confident writer. There was nothing that he couldn't write lyrics to. So I'm soaking all that up, I'm like, all right, great. So we made more demos. Nothing was really getting anybody super excited. So Aaron, the A&R guy, came to Birmingham to hang out with us, check our progress. We're playing there was this one bar called the Rock Connection, and it was a 5-night-a-week place, and we were the band for the week, and so we were doing like our Thursday night thing, and you played 3 or 4 sets, and, just debauchery, man. And it was great. We could play anything we want, and we're doing Deep Purple and AC/DC, and we're playing our own songs, and it was a scene. It was a happening. Well, to give the singer a break, I would sing like 3 songs. And the 3 songs I sang were Melissa by the Allman Brothers, Jailbreak by Thin Lizzy. And the third song had to have been a Skynyrd song, like Saturday Night Special or something like that, something riffy. So Aaron was at the club that night, and when we finished that set, he came over to me, and I'll never forget him grabbing my shoulder kind of aggressively. And he goes, "Hey, you didn't tell me you could sing." He said it just like that. And I knew what he was thinking. And I just went, time out, bro. Hey, no, I don't sing. I contribute background vocals. And I'm down with that, but I am not a singer. I don't want to be the singer. And he said, well, I got bad news for you. You're going to sing. He said, I'm out of money. I'm not going to be able to get any more money from the label. We've been working on this for 6 months. He said, tomorrow we're going into the studio here in town, and I want you to get behind the mic and sing some of these songs. And
so
that's what happened.
You had to, at that point, you really had no choice.
Yeah, and that's how it happened, Craig. So I went in the next day and sang a couple of things, and Aaron liked what he heard so much that he called 2 musician friends in Nashville. One was great writer, keyboard player named Wally Wilson, who had done a lot of writing, co-writes, and had toured with some big acts. And the other guy was a guitar player, probably you've heard of, named Kenny Greenberg.
Oh, yeah, of course, man. He's on everything.
Kenny's a legend.
Yeah, man.
And their legends both were kind of growing at that time. But they, on Aaron's request, they drove down to Birmingham from Nashville. And so we got back in the studio again that next day. And I remember those guys sitting on the other side of the glass. And I sang a couple of songs. And, and that kind of separation, they're like, okay, guys, hang on just 1 minute. And then they turn and they're talking. And I remember our bass player, Glenn Maxey, was standing next to me. And I says, man, what the fuck are these guys doing? And Glenn goes, I know what they're doing. They want you to sing, bro. And you should sing. You sound great. Your voice sounds great. And you should do this, man. And let's just get on with it, And that's exactly what happened. So I left the studio that day and came home and told my wife, all right, I guess I'm going to sing. So Miracle of Miracles is innately, I didn't hesitate to recognize that lyrically, I wasn't a fan of a lot of the songs that we had because they were very, typical lyrics of the day, rock lyrics of the day. They were super misogynistic, sexist. Look, man, if you're an AC/DC, that's killer. Well, I wasn't Brian Johnson. And I wasn't Angus Young. I was this kid from Alabama that had a daughter, had another baby on the way. Matter of fact, I think my son Marshall had just been born because he was born in 91. That's right. So I had 2 kids at that. I just had a different view of myself. And so I remember Aaron calling me, or I called him, and I was expressing kind of some fear, like, hey man, I get, I remember there were 2 songs in particular that he loved. And I says, man, but I don't believe these lyrics. Like I just feel like singing cover songs, He said, of course. He goes, no problem. You're about to start writing. He goes, I'm going to start getting you with co-writes. You're going to come out here to LA. Now that we got the plan, we got to get you in shape, vocally, lyrically, every way. Wow. Wow, man.
So it gave you the support that you needed, actually.
Measure in that moment, man, how valuable that was. So then the next comet that flies into my life and changed everything was I'd written with a few people, and I was underwhelmed myself, because most guys were trying to write You Give Love a Bad Name, Mach 5 or 6, whatever. And I'm at home still, man, listening to Grand Funk and Humble Pie and Bad Company and even Skinner, man. Ronnie Van Zant's a badass songwriter, man. Great lyrics. So
you're basically a blues guy, is what I'm hearing.
Yeah, man. I was way more into that. Again, those kinds of lyrics. You could sing a song about a girl, but it didn't have to be cherry fucking pie.
Yeah.
It didn't have to be Unskinny Bop, for God's sake. You know what I mean, bro? And
Yeah,
that's what everybody in the clubs was playing, and that's what all these new bands around us were wanting to do, and just didn't resonate with me at all, man.
I give you a lot of credit for sticking to your guns there, because, you know, it's tough to forge your own path, to have the confidence to say, to do what other people, you know, to do the thing that other people are not doing, when there's so many seemingly, you know, sheep following the shepherd that is doing, all the shepherds doing that thing. So I really give you a lot of credit. I'm going to ask you, so this is a premature question, but I want to ask you now because it just popped into my head. Where did this, the independence and decisiveness, man, that's a really good trait. How did you get that? Where did that come from? And the confidence to execute on that.
Well, that's a great question. And I have two thoughts. One is my parents are such hardworking blue collar people. You know, we were kind of lower middle class, man. We never had much stuff. And my dad worked super hard, and my mom had grown up on a farm and then had 4 kids and was a stay-at-home mom. And that, you know, bro, it's the hardest, most thankless job you can have, man. It's
Hell yeah.
relentless. So I just had this great example of hard work. And, you know, I was a good student in school. I did well, you know, good grades. And I don't know, man, I just kind of came up with this mentality somehow that, all right, whatever you're going to do, man, you need to do a good job. So if you think now of the things we've already covered and going through Split the Dark, Witness, Delta Rebels, and I'd seen productivity there. I'd also seen some missteps there. I had learned from all of that. A lot of credit goes to Conrad Rayfield, because looking back, there was no way that guy was going to waste his time on anyone that did not have their shit together. So even though I didn't have it totally together, there were definitely things that I was on top of. And, you know, man, I was never late. If you said, hey, man, let's have a conference call at 10:30, I'm on the line at 10:25, waiting, ready. You know, I got too much respect for somebody else's time. And you know what I mean?
Yeah, of course.
It's just disrespectful. So he felt all that. So you just reminded me of a great story that you'll like, Craig. So in that transition time between, you know, us having the development deal and working with other singers, and then me becoming the singer, one of those very first gigs we played in Birmingham, that I'm the front man. So I'm not just singing the songs, but I'm talking to the crowd between songs. Well, what I didn't know is that Conrad and his other partner, Jay Wilson, who also became part of the management team, they had come down to see me one night. And there were things that they really liked and there were things they didn't like. So they come back the next night, and what I didn't know is they had asked the sound man to record the show. So the next day, the third day, phone rings, it's Conrad. He goes, hey, Deej, can you come down to the office, you know, sometime this morning or this afternoon? I said, yeah, man, I'll come right now. So I drive down. I walk into his office. He goes, sit down. So, Craig, he starts playing the tape from the show the night before. And to say, now remember, bro, I am I'm as raw and fresh and new. Like, I am trying to figure this shit out on the fly and do the best I can.
You mean managing the crowd and engagement and singing and just running the whole business of the band up on stage?
So he's like playing, not me singing the songs, but he wants me to hear what I'm saying to the crowd between songs. And it was some jive ass, horrible. You know, look, man, I'm just emulating what I had seen the singers do in every band I'd been in for the last 3 or 4 years, you know?
Right.
And it's all like this jive ass, like Steven Tyler's great at it. He's one of the best, but he's Steven Tyler.
But it fits. He's one of the best because it's authentic for him.
it's authentic for him.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And authenticity is a word I was a long ways off from. And thank God for Conrad that he recognized that I didn't have the luxury of time to get there. I had to get there fast. So, I said something to the crowd like, all right, what's the next song? Like just Yo Cat. Oh, and he goes, you hear what you said right there, Deej? I said, yeah. He goes, don't ever say that again.
Good for him, man.
Ever.
That's like really good that he told you that.
Well, and I remember, man, because I was starting to get a little full of myself. I was starting to get some confidence because I knew I needed it. And you got to remember, man, I'm at home listening to Chris Robinson and Axl Rose and Bon Scott, and those guys were all attitude all the time. So I definitely took offense to how he was talking to me. Like, hey, man, you can't talk to me like that, And then he said something I'll never forget. He goes, you need to ask yourself an important question, Damon. Do you want to be David Lee Roth or do you want to be Eric Clapton? Like, just drops the mic, and I was like, got it. I get it. I got it. Thank you. I think I literally walked over and hugged him. I said, I get it, brother. I said, you're right. Thank you for this, because no one else was going to talk to me like that, Craig, because no one cared enough.
Yeah.
No one gave a shit. What, you think some girl in the crowd is going to come and go, hey, you thought the show was good and you sing well, but you sound like a carnival.
Yeah.
Say, just don't talk like that. So really pivotal. Shortly after that.
But it sounds, he's really done there are people that have jobs and responsibilities that go with them, but like the bell curve, there's only a skinny little amount of people at the top who take responsibility for what they're doing and really it sounds like he's done a great job with that, man.
He has. And he blows it off to this day when I try to thank him. He's like, look, man, that was you. You're the talent. And I said, yeah, but bro, come on. I was unrefined. I was no direction. Two other key things happened around that time period, and they both involve collaborating and songwriting with two key people. As I mentioned, being such a fan of Guns N' Roses, when I signed the record deal, how that worked at that time, Craig, is the label wanted to always also sign you to a publishing deal, And what I didn't realize is like, they're doing that because just in case you become Ricky Martin or you become Pearl Jam, they've got your publishing as well, up until you renegotiate or whatever. So I had signed a publishing deal, which was totally helpful, man, because then all of a sudden I'm on the list at EMI Publishing in Los Angeles. It's like, all right, here's this guy, Damon Johnson, in this band, Child, needs songs. Let's get some co-writes. So they asked me, or they sent me a list of writers that were on their roster. Well, one of the names I saw was the name West Arkeen. And West's name I recognized instantly because he's on Appetite for Destruction.
Oh.
He was, I think, the only outside writer from the band. West had co-written It's So Easy with Duff and Izzy. And then on the Use Your Illusion records, West had 2, maybe 3 songs. The Garden.
Great song.
The Garden, Yesterdays, and I think maybe one other song. So no hesitation. Please, I'd love to write with West Arkeen. Oh, that's great, Damon. Well, it turns out he's going to be in Nashville. He's got some other co-writes, so let's schedule something when he's there. So I go to Nashville. I meet West, another character, sadly, another guy that struggled with his own demons. He was sober at the time, had it together, reveling in the success of GNR, but had an attitude, man. And I picked it up really quickly, like, all right, I cannot waste this guy's time, or he's going to tell me to, to fuck off.
Yeah.
I just know. So I remember I met him, we met in a hotel room and I had my guitar and he was instantly complaining about two of the other acts he had co-written with earlier in his trip. And he just said, man, these guys, they barely got any talent. He goes, they're just posers. They look good in tight leather pants. And he goes, they're not songwriters. Well, thank God I had a great riff. I brought out a great riff. And Wes was a badass guitar player, man. Played in fascinating open tunings, Craig. For my first real exposure to that as well. Like he exposed me to that. But great story here. We worked on this song. The lyric he helped me come up with, it was called "Rattle My Bones." Very street GNR, kind of snotty. I was like, yeah, man, I love this. I can't wait to take this back to the guys in the band and work on this. So I remember in that afternoon, he's like, well, let's go over to Tower Records or whatever the record store was. He goes, I need to get a couple things. And so we go to the CD store, Craig, and we're flipping through, and I'm talking about Peter Gabriel, and I remember we talked about Neil Young. And so we're at the Neil Young section, and he pulls out After the Gold Rush, and he goes, fuck, what a great record, right? And I went, well, I know Southern Man, and, that's about it. I said, I don't know the rest of this record. And he almost got offended. He goes, are you trying to tell me you've never listened to After the Gold Rush? And I said, no, I haven't. And he did the same kind of attitude that Conrad gave me that day. He's like, follow me. Takes the CD. We go to the counter. Like, shopping is over. We go to the counter. We pay for the CD. He takes it out. You remember they used to be in those plastic cases? Sure. The big long thing so they could display it. He rips it open, hands me the CD. He goes, this is what you're going to do. You're going to go back to your room and you're going to listen to this record from top to bottom twice. Don't call me until you've listened to it twice. And he walked out the door, bro. He wouldn't even walk with me back to my hotel. Okay. All right. So I go back to the Hampton Inn on Broadway, or I guess it's West End in Nashville, Tennessee, where I live now, ironically. And I follow his instructions, man. And I listen to Tell Me Why and this title track After the Gold Rush.
It's a beautiful record.
Yeah. Only Love Can Break Your Heart. Huge, man. Huge. And then I went back and he says, do you understand me now? And I probably shook his hand and I said, thank you, Wes. That was important, man. I need this right now more than ever. And what it did for me in that moment, Craig, is there were these other songs that I had co-written with other people that were still sort of circling in the perimeter. Like, well, maybe this song will be good. I don't know, bro. I just took, it was like I just took my hand and just waved them off the table. Like, I don't ever want to hear those songs again because those lyrics are bullshit. I don't believe in those songs. I don't believe in what they're saying. And I never went back to them. So I've only got like 3 or 4 songs that I had kept from the old batch. West and I wrote a couple. And then this is what I was referring to earlier when I said this big comet that came into my life. More cassette tapes are coming in, Craig, from Aaron and from the publishing company. And I would just put them in my car while I'm driving around. And usually, man, it took about 12 bars. And I'd be like, nope, next. And, throw it in the floorboard and get another tape out. So I remember I've reached over blindly, pick up a tape, throw it in, hit play. And there's this song, man, and instantly the demo sounds insane. Like, it sounds amazing. The drums just jumped out of my speaker. The guitar sounded great. Then the singing starts, and the melody was killer. It was really sort of in this wheelhouse of all of these different things that I'm starting to connect the dots on and go, okay, I want to kind of go in this direction. This song fit in that. The lyric was Black Widow. And I remember reaching over and picking up the cassette and looking at the spine, and all it said was Marty Fredrickson. And so I called the A&R guy. I said, man, I drove down, see Conrad. I played him 2 or 3 songs because the next song sounded great. And then the third song sounded great. So I got really excited. And I drove down to Conrad. I played it for him. And he's like, yeah, wow, this is awesome. He said, well, who is this guy? I said, I have no fucking clue who he is. So.
And these, just so I understand, these were all demo tapes from writers that they had sent you from writers that you might be interested in co-writing with.
Correct. That's what all these were.
Okay.
And this recording sounded like a record. And I remember Conrad and I discussing it and thinking, like, man, maybe this was some album that he recorded and, you know, the A&R guy gets fired, so the band gets dropped and it never gets released because it sounded that good. It was just incredible. I have that cassette to this day, Craig.
That's kind of cool.
Right now, right? So
that's really cool.
I call Aaron. I say, hey, man, really love this tape. He goes, who is it? I said, Marty Fredrickson. And he's writing notes. He goes, all right, well, let me call over to EMI and we'll figure it out. And because I was planning another trip out, he says, well, I'll plan for you guys to get together and have a meeting. So I stayed at Aaron's house in Hollywood, knock on the door. Here's this Marty Fredrickson. And it was like I was looking at a mirrored image. We were the same height, skinny. We're both wearing, you know, short pants and combat boots and, you know, and I was just like, hey, bro, it's great to meet you. And we went to eat. We went to get lunch together to just talk. And I started asking him about the demo. And I said, hey, man, what was that? You know, like, were you signed in the band? And, you know, like, what studio to record that? And he goes, oh, man, I made those demos on my Fostex 8-track in my living room.
Holy crap.
And I was like, the hell you say? Like, well, the drums, man, that you didn't do those. He goes, yeah, I've got this thing called a Lin drum, and I just programmed the drums. And he's like, I'll show it to you tomorrow because we were going to write the next day. So, yeah, man. So Marty discovered me, and I discovered Marty in that moment. The first song we wrote ever was a song called Don't Turn Your Back on Me, which is the 4th song on the debut record. Sounded incredible. He gets on that Lin drum. We demoed the song, Craig. Once we had finished writing the lyric, we made a demo that sounded like a fucking record, man, in 20 minutes. I had never seen anything like it. My mind was blown. And he moved fast, and he was instinctual. And bear in mind, man, he had not done anything more than I had done at that point. He had played drums in a band. He played rhythm guitar and co-wrote in a band that did have a deal that kind of fell apart for some of the same reasons we discussed earlier. But Marty was a fully formed writer. He just hadn't been discovered yet. And our paths just happened to cross, all because of that cassette tape.
Isn't it crazy, man, that, like, had you reached over an inch the other way, that wouldn't have happened?
No.
How fucking crazy is shit? I hear this stuff every day, and this is why I'm like, you know, I've really come to believe, honestly, more so since I've had this show, that there are forces out there making shit happen, because it's just too, you know, it's too random otherwise.
Well, I think you're totally right. And the older I get, the more I believe it. And the older I get, the more I thank all these people, man, for helping me, for believing in me, for even just giving me their time, man, because time is so valuable. Yeah. Time is so valuable for all of us. And Marty really invested in me. You know, we hit it off, man. We had so much in common. And, you know, like, for all my love of the Black Crowes and Aerosmith, you know, he loved Cheap Trick. Really loved Cheap Trick. We listened to so much Cheap Trick, man. It's great because Marty's real gifts, in my opinion, beyond just being a great producer and multi-instrumentalist, is his sense of melody. He has a real gift. And I needed that so dearly at that point. And he made it easy, man. Like, he could write a great melody over anything.
Well, man, I got to tell, sorry to cut you off. I got to tell you, the first thing that I thought of, and I'm not blowing smoke up your ass, I'm not that guy, but the first thing I thought of when I listened to your new record was, wow, this dude really knows how to write songs. That's like, that comes through like, because you could, you know, it's like it's a melody, it's well formed, it's structured, you know, so I mean, whatever, you know, you've learned, clearly you've absorbed these things and then have the talent on your own that you took it. That was literally the first thing, because you could tell a good melody, even if you don't like the melody, you could tell a good melody and, okay, this is like well done package and it's, you know, creative. Anyway, so hats off to you.
Thank you for that, brother. Well, I studied at the school of Wes Arkeen and Marty Fredrickson. And again, there are not two more perfect people for what I wanted to do and what I would become and what I would grow into than those two guys. And, but Marty and I just went on a tear. We wrote Don't Turn Your Back on Me. The next day we wrote a song called Hard Act to Follow, which I play to this day. Acoustically, I do it with my band. It's just one of the great, it's just one of those songs where you go, doesn't matter what kind of music you're into, top to bottom, that is a well-written song. Memorable in every way, the arrangement, there's not an ounce of fat on it. You know, and Marty really helped me think like that.
That is what I'm talking about. What you just said, there's not an ounce of fat there. Thank you for saying that, because I had a hard time articulating.
Yeah. And because, you know, man, I'm being a guitar player and that being my primary instrument and my main love and all of that, you know, I would have a tendency to want, well, hey man, let's milk this riff a little longer. And he'd like, let's not. Let's get off of that riff. Let's introduce a great melody that people are going to remember. And then when the riff comes back in later, it's going to be like a fist in the face.
Yeah.
He was so right, man. He was so right. So Don't Turn Your Back on Me, Hard Act to Follow. We wrote a couple of other songs that didn't make the album. We wrote this beautiful ballad. I brought him this piece of music, real kind of Southern, called The Road. Another song, man, that just stands up top to bottom, no fat on it. And then, he came to Birmingham to write with me, because obviously, man, the chemistry was there, the shit was happening. You can only imagine what the label was saying. They were like, Aaron Jacobus was like so happy. He's like, this is your team. Like, this is the guy. You know, you got a couple great songs with West. You got a few others. Let's focus. We're not going to write with anybody else. You know, you and Marty are on a tear. Let's see what else you come up with. So he came to Birmingham, and
props to him for sticking it out, you know, for hanging and believing in you, man, and supporting and continuing to support.
Well, trust me, man, Marty got excited too that a major record label was excited about the songs, because come on, man, he's a businessman too. He knew that this was just going to grow his reputation at this label that would lead to other labels that would lead to other bands. And that's exactly what wound up happening for Marty, brother. He went on to Marty, I guess right after our second Brother Kane record, which he actually produced as well. We wrote And Fools Shine On together, Bread Maker, several other songs on that album, but he produced that record in Atlanta with us. And then after that, man, he wound up writing with Vince Neil, who had just left Motley Crue, and then he did a Rat record, and he co-wrote some pop stuff, you know, growing. And I said, bro, Aerosmith is headed your way. I'm just telling you. Because Aerosmith kept putting out records that they wrote with outside writers.
Yeah.
Nobody loved Aerosmith more than me and Marty. I said, bro, it's just a matter of time. And true to the word, you know, John Kalodner reaches out, because John was involved with that Rat record. And that's when he met Marty. And Kalodner's like, well, I also worked with this other band called Aerosmith. So Marty
that's really cool.
Joe, and then he and Joe wrote a bunch of stuff, and then one thing led to another. And then in the early 2000s, Marty Fredrickson wrote a song with Steven Tyler called Jaded.
Very cool.
That was a top 5 worldwide smash. Changed his life in every awesome way. And It's another one of my favorite memories, Craig. Marty was in New York, and he had after that song with Steven, after Jaded, Sony Music signed him to a stupid publishing deal, a big fat one.
Good for him.
And he literally might have been smoking a cigar. And he said, "Hey, bro, just want to give you a shout out, man. Thank you for our friendship and for, the things that we did together, because that's what opened the door to all this other stuff." And
it's cool, man, when you participate in something like that and you took off and, and you can, you were there in the trenches together, when this was all happening. That's nice.
Really were, man. I, couldn't have done any of these things without Marty. But going backwards a little, so he came to Birmingham and we wrote Got No Shame at Howard Johnson's motel on Highway 31 in Birmingham, sitting out by the pool. And I remember we ran upstairs I had a little 4-track machine and a crappy drum machine. So we just etched out this little demo and we were trying to write a hit. I remember like, man, we need a song to open the show with. We need something high energy to just come out and be badass. And so we wrote Got No Shame. And when we made the record, it was just obviously, man, a special track. And so that the success of Got No Shame is what got us to be able to release Hard Act to Follow. And then all of that got us to the second record. And, it's always a fun walk down memory lane for me, man, to look back at those times, because in that moment, you can't measure what's really going on, but you just know it feels good. You're like, man, this song is great. Oh, wow. I wrote this. I remember coming home to my first wife saying, hey, Marty and I wrote a really cool song. I don't think it's a single, but it's called And Fools Shine On. I played the demo, and I just knew the melody was haunting and it was something different from anything I'd ever sung before or been a part of creating.
And your vocals on that song are killer, man.
Thank you, bro.
I mean, obviously a lot of people thought so, not just me, but
really. Marty gets a lot of credit. He, as I said, he produced that second album. And just like when we were making demos together at his house in California on the first record, Marty was always so patient with me singing. Craig, I am not a great singer. I'm not an authentic singer. I'm a good singer and I can get it done, but it takes me a while, man. I have pitch issues, pitch issues that I can hear myself. Like if I sing it, I sing a line or two and then I hear it back. I can instantly go, that's flat. It's just, I wasn't born with one of those voices. So it takes me some time. So Marty was super patient, man. And but Fools Shine On was kind of a perfect song. The bridge in Fools Shine On is the section after the second chorus where it lifts and it soars into this key change and the melody goes someplace you don't expect. It might be the 16 bars of music that I'm most proud of.
That's awesome, man.
Having anything to do with. And he gets all the credit, man, because it was that melody. He wrote this beautiful melody when we were working out those chords. And I'm like, man, I could sing the ingredients off of this cornflakes. And it would be great.
It's a great song, man. And, that's, first of all, man, thank you for sharing. What a cool journey. Thank you.
Thank you, man. Well, and what's wild is that's just the first 5 years. So you got to forgive me, Craig, for getting so long-winded. But again,
no, it's great. It was really interesting.
Those were key, massive events, massive moments for me.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I have this expression: you can't connect the dots moving forward. But when you look at all these things, the series of this had to happen and this connected to, it's like, it's just wild. It just blows my mind, man.
Well, it blows mine too, man. And as we're talking about these things from my past, and we can revisit this later, but it gives me this beautiful reinforcement of the decision that I made now 7 or 8 months ago to just focus on my solo career and to just be Damon Johnson forever. There's hundreds of artists that are doing just fine, that are doing that. And they're not playing arenas. They're not playing the big festivals. It's not their name, at Coachella, or they're not on Saturday Night Live or any of that kind of stuff, man. But what they're doing is they're working, and they're telling their stories. They're singing their truth. So for me to reminisce back to these incredible teaching tools that I've been so fortunate to have, it just reminds me that I got everything I need, man. There's nothing standing in my way. Not even older age, not the internet, not rock is dead. None of that stuff is standing in my way, man. If I do quality work and if I tell my story, everything's going to work itself out, man. All that other shit takes care of itself.
And that's the only thing you can control anyway. So you might as well do what feels right with the only shit you can control, you know?
Yeah, man. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, there's not one band I've been in that I am not grateful for and didn't learn from and didn't do fantastic stuff with. But bands are a committee. Bands are a democracy. And as we get older and we have other priorities in our lives outside of music, it just becomes more and more difficult for everybody to be in sync, with big picture and the schedule and wants and not wants and likes and dislikes. And so I kind of feel like a hawk soaring over some open field, and and when I'm ready to dive down and pick up some food to bring back to the nest, I'll do that. But I'm going to do it I'm going to make those decisions myself now, and it feels great.
Good for you, man. 90, you formed Brother Cane. 93, you released the first album, Brother Cane. You have a #1 single with Got No Shame. Then each of your subsequent albums also has a #1 single. So a few things. First of all, 20 years, almost 20 years too late, but congratulations, because that is something that nobody does that. I mean, it's like, that's what people dream about. People dream about having a record deal, let alone having a hit single. But to be the guy that wrote or co-wrote the songs, sang the songs, and played lead, that's insane.
It's pretty insane, man. And I think by the end of that experience, I think I was so burned out and a bit lost internally, not really sure what the future held, ending one marriage and then starting a new relationship with someone else and just trying to get my footing. I took for granted the specialness for a long time, I think, Craig, of how insane. I like your word. It is insane, all those accomplishments. It is the stuff that you dream of and that is nearly impossible. But we made it happen. And, a great friend of mine, I remember I was thinking about, I gave a little thought to even just doing something else, man. My dad offered me basically his business. I told you he was a farm equipment salesman for years, and he had all these relationships with dealers around the Alabama and Georgia area. And he's just basically saying, look, man, I know you've got great work ethic, you great people skills. He goes, I'm getting ready to retire. I'll just hand this off to you and you'll have security. And I thought about it for a minute, a short minute, but very quickly I'm like, well, Dad, it's not my passion. It's not what I love. It's not what I want to do. And so I forgot about the special accomplishments that we had in Brother Cane, so much so that when I started getting some of these offers, Craig, to be a sideman, to play guitar for an established artist, the simplicity of that, the ease of just showing up and someone hands you a perfectly tuned guitar, you go on stage and play these songs that were hits, way bigger hits than anything I'd done, a built-in audience, infrastructure, great agent, great manager. I don't have to make any decisions.
Yeah, that I could understand.
And get a paycheck, bro. That was that was almost euphoric.
I could totally understand that, man.
Because all of a sudden, man, I didn't have to work so hard. I didn't have to think so hard. Well, and one little footnote, and please don't lose your thought. I'm not going to deny that there was a little bit of self-doubt, like, well, maybe Brother King didn't happen because of me. Maybe we didn't grow that fan base because of me. Maybe I wasn't enough of a front man, enough of a personality, an interesting enough artist, songwriter. Not going to deny that, man. I had a lot of doubts.
Yeah, that's heavy.
You know? So I internalized that. And so, I got the call to play guitar for the great British singer John Waite, whose songs I love, man. And, I walked into John's band and he just put his arms around me. He's like, man, where have you been? Tall, handsome, badass Les Paul, rocking this stuff. Great. That made me feel good, man, at a time where I needed to feel good, wanted to feel good. I had started my relationship with Linda, who's my wife to this day. So that was exciting. But, a few calls to put Brother King back together or go do these shows. And, man, I just didn't really want to. It was too much work, too much on me. I was definitely enjoying not having to carry so much responsibility.
I totally get that, especially because you did all this during your 20s when life is supposed to be sort of, quote, fun, and I not to compare me and you, but the responsibility of having kids at that age is overwhelming as it is, which most people are smarter than that. They don't have kids in their 20s,
right.
and they're like enjoying life, not that to imply kids doesn't enjoy your life, but now you got like these responsibilities. You can't go out on a Friday night, you're like,
oh, listen, man, I talk to all my older kids, man. They, it's something that we discuss often. And I would love nothing more to have grandkids. My daughter Heather is 31 now, and she and her husband have been married for, wow, man, it'll be 10 years.
Wow.
In November. They were high school sweethearts and they're just solid as a rock, but they are in no hurry, Craig.
I know. That's smart.
They're in no hurry. And you know what? Good for them. And, cause it's not about me. As much as I kid around and tell them, all right, you've had enough time, let's get on with it. It is about them. And because kids are a giant responsibility. It's the greatest, blessing in my life.
But it's a ton of work.
I'm so grateful for all of them, and they're healthy and beautiful and super smart. But yeah, it's a lot of work, and you need two people to really give a kid, the best possible opportunity. And it's hard when somebody's gone 180 days out of the year.
God, yeah.
Playing Pierre's in Fort Wayne, Indiana, which I love, man. But I missed a lot of basketball games and dance recitals. So, there's definitely some sacrifices.
Question for you along those lines. I'm trying to think which question, without getting gossipy. And because I'm sure you've addressed this 100 times, and I'll do my best. This will be the only question I hope I ask you that you've been asked before. Just for the listeners, what caused the breakup? 3 albums, 3 number 1 hits. You'd think, holy shit, this thing is a machine, but the band broke up.
Yeah, I mean, I guess really it's sort of what I touched on a little while ago. A combination of the changes in the business structure at Virgin Records, our record company. There was turnover there every other year. And each album was literally like we had to prove ourselves all over again just to keep the relationship, because they're running a business. There are budgets. There are little boxes at the bottom of the page. What are the results? How many records did you sell? How many tickets are you selling to your shows? And those numbers were never really that impressive, certainly not by comparison to to some of the bands that were our peers, Pearl Jam and Rob Zombie and on, man.
Yeah.
And the other thing is that after the Wishpool album, active rock radio had a big shift, and that was the onset of bands like Limp Bizkit, like Korn. It was a different sound. It was an angrier sound. We just didn't have anything in common with that. And I remember standing on the side of a stage at a festival in Tampa, Florida, and we were doing a show with the great band Seven Dust, who are our friends, and we spent some quality time with and love those guys. But they had the right sound at that right time. And I remember standing there watching LeJean out there singing and Clint playing guitar, and the crowd just, it was like Rage Against the Machine, man. It was an assault, both directions, from the audience to the band and from the band to the audience. And I think I looked at our drummer, Scott Collier. I said, man, I think we're out of business. Like,
wow.
That's not who we are. We don't want to do that. We couldn't be that if we wanted to. And this is the changing of the guard. This is the turning. It's a big turn, big shift in rock radio. And we just felt like it was going to get harder and harder for us. And, we had other peers that had made the transition a little better, like the guys in the Goo Goo Dolls. They were getting enough pop radio. Our friends in Collective Soul, they were getting enough pop airplay to coincide with the active rock stuff, that they were broadening their audience and bringing in more people.
Yeah, you guys weren't poppy. I can understand that, man.
See what I'm saying?
That's a pretty heavy comment, though. Like,
we're out of business.
Yeah, I think we're out of business. Holy shit! Because that happens. I mean, as a guy who's run business, we talked earlier, 20 years. I've said the same thing, and it's like, I think I'm out of business. On this particular this venture, yeah, it's time to pack it up and wow.
And look, man, it was so silly of me to feel like I shared with you earlier, like I internalized some of the lack of bigger success on myself. Like, oh, well, maybe it's my fault. I'm not as compelling of a front man as some of these other guys. But
that's a normal response for someone who's a type A personality with a good work ethic. I would have done. I mean, that's not like, I don't think that was an egotistical thing. I think that was like, you're the kind of guy that's like, I'm responsible. Did I not work hard enough? That's how I took that.
And you just said a mouthful, Craig. I am so type A. Yeah. I am so right brain. Whereas, everyone else that was having success then felt a lot more left brain, a lot more artistic and creative. And, just some of the songs I was writing for Brother Kane, thinking of maybe let's do another record. Nothing was really speaking to me. And quite honestly, I remember too, man, like Marty's star was really on the rise, and he was just busy, man. And he was busy doing things that were happening, that were making money, not just for the record company and the band, but also for the co-writers and co-producers. And, he had his own family to take care of and to think about. So it's not like I could say, hey, bro, I'm going to come to LA and let's spend a couple of weeks together. He didn't have 2 weeks anymore.
Yeah.
He was super busy, which I completely understand.
So you did think you thought to reach out for help, or you were comfortable? Because you seem like you're really comfortable. That's a gift that you're comfortable asking for help.
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt, man. Because as I mentioned earlier too, I have some great friends in my inner circle, and they were super helpful then. My new relationship with Linda, my God, man, she's just the most incredible human I've ever met. Talk about straight truth, man. She just doesn't mince words, and she calls it like she sees it. And not just holding me accountable, but assessing any situation and having a super informed commentary on it. So that was really helpful as well. And, there was never really anything between the two of us that made us go, all right, well, let's just cool out for a while. Let's get our marriage settled in, and then we'll just go put Brother King back together and get back to business. Because we did have 3 number 1 songs, and people did know who we were and that kind of thing. But, playing with John Waite was too much fun. And then I got the Alice Cooper phone call, Craig.
Yeah.
It was like fucking joining the circus, man. It was incredible. And
any cool stories? Any cool, funny rock and roll stories from there you could tell?
I got more cool stories than we have time, man. One of my favorites is my first gig with Alice. I went and auditioned, and Alice called me a couple days later to say that, I was the guy that he wanted to fill the spot, and the gig was mine if I wanted it. And I thanked him, and we talked about the set list, and I went back to Los Angeles and rehearsed with just the band. Alice wasn't there, but I rehearsed with the band for 3 or 4 days, man, running the set list and all that. And so they would talk about places in the set list. They'd say, hey, Damon, right here before the Ballad of Dwight Fry, make sure you stand out of the way because they're going to bring out the guillotine, and Coop's going to straight down. Wow. It's awesome. So, I'd certainly never had any experience like that before. So I'm making notes, and, I had this amazing guitar tech, and he's helping me, and I'm like, hey, bro, would you write down right there, or remind me when I make this guitar change after $1 Billion Babies, remind me to stay out of the way, blah, blah, blah. So trying to be pro, man, trying to be low maintenance. I want it to be a seamless transition for everyone. So I'm working really hard, making notes, getting all the information. So we do the first gig, Craig. We played a big casino up in New Jersey somewhere. And it's my first gig with Alice ever. And the first memory I have of that night, it was just so fucking loud. It was loud. It's like, it was painful. It wasn't enjoyable. It was so loud it scared me. I was not prepared for how loud the side fill monitors were. And, and a few years later, actually, Alice went through a big overhaul of that. He started working with his, the legendary producer, Bob Ezrin again. And Bob came and was like, Alice is like, what can we tighten up? And Bob's like, Jesus Christ, you've got to turn this shit down. But anyway, it was really loud. But then I settled in, the show's going on. One of the songs that I played the intro on that we had rehearsed is one of his classic songs, Is It My Body? Oh. And it's got that really sexy riff. So I knew that I was supposed to stand kind of at center stage. I got these spotlights on me, and I'm playing that riff. And I knew Coop was going to kind of come up and start singing the lyric, and it would just be the two of us there for a second. Well, what no one told me is that he was going to walk up beside me accompanied by his 15-foot boa constrictor.
Nice.
Around his head. I'm fascinated with snakes, and I'm cool with snakes if I know they're there. I love to go to the zoo and look at snakes and study them and all that. But to like just walk up on one, man, it scares the shit out of me. So I'm in front of like 4,000 people and playing this guitar part, and Coop comes up and puts his arm up on my shoulder, and he sings, what have I got? And there's that fucking snake, man. Just head weaving and bobbing, and I got to keep my shit together, bro. I'm dying. And when the band comes in, and and I was able to kind of step away, I went back over to the guitar tech, and I was like angry. I'm like, none of you motherfuckers told me about the fucking snake, man.
Holy shit! I've heard other people have told me similar stories about.
I was freaking out, man. So that got things off to a bang, and played a lot of golf with Coop. I had just taken up golf a few years prior, kind of in the mid '90s in Brother Kane. I had one of my best friends. He had encouraged me to take up golf because that was going to help me not be hanging out in the bars after the gigs. It was like, gave me a reason to get into bed early and maybe get up the next day and go hit some golf balls. So, it was it was just an incredible experience, man, being with Coop. And, another priceless moment for me was that shortly after I joined the band, he went straight in to make another album. And that record was called Dirty Diamonds. So I got to co-write with Alice Cooper. I think I have 4, maybe 5 songs that I co-wrote on that record.
That's really cool.
So, for all the chops that I had developed and worked on in the previous decade, it really came in handy there because he really liked a lot of the ideas that I brought in, and he was super comfortable with either lyric suggestions, melodic suggestions, music suggestions, whatever, man. And he was really comfortable in his own skin. But what a powerful moment, man, to sit with him and watch him turn into Alice Cooper, the songwriter. Wow. Legendary stuff, man. Legendary.
Man, I want to talk about your new record that drops today, the day this airs. It's called Memoirs of an Uprising. A few questions. What do you like most and least about putting the record together, and anything else you want to talk about it? And then I'll talk about a couple of the tracks I really enjoyed. And what made you make it in the first place?
Yeah, man. Well, remind me of those questions, because those are all great questions, and I'll try to give you intelligent, edited version.
No, you're good, man. You're good, bro.
The one big takeaway for me from this moment that I don't think I'll ever forget, it will always stand for something, is that this, I produced this record myself. It's the first one I've self-produced. And I'm just proud of kind of the plan that I put together from the very beginning. I demoed up all these songs just to have kind of a schematic to follow, something to play for my band, who did an amazing job. They worked really fast. Was able to make this record fairly economically. And but I really put in the time, as I mentioned to you earlier, Craig, about the vocals. It takes me some time to get the vocals right. So for the first time ever, I just recorded the vocals by myself, without an engineer. I engineered it myself, and it was beautiful to have as much time as I wanted to take to get them right. And I would work on them for a while, step away, go do some other stuff, come back, listen, and it was always a good day when I could listen to an entire vocal for one song and go, that's exactly how I want that to sound. The phrasing is right. I would change lyrics right up until the last minute. That's also, I feel, an important part of the creative process too. It's fun that happens when you record your own vocals. It puts all the lyrics under a bright microscope. So sometimes changing one word can it's rocket fuel for the story that you're telling, or the line that you're trying to present. So that's one of the things I love the most. As far as what I disliked the most, I don't know. I don't know if there was really anything about this that I didn't enjoy. I will say that, one of the frustrations that I've always had about trying to record my own music in between my commitments to a bigger project, like when I was in Alice Cooper, when I was in Thin Lizzy, when I was in Black Star Riders, you just have to do the extra work in whatever downtime you have. And inevitably that kind of bleeds over to your family. Like they wind up suffering from
that you take the time away from them. Yeah.
Because you're home off tour, your car is in the driveway again, but you're still not there because you're downstairs singing, or you're downstairs writing, or you're downstairs working on a guitar part. But maybe that had a part to play in my decision to finally step out of Black Star Riders and just do this full time, because I really realized that, hey, if I just had more time, I can do this. I can make my own records, produce them myself, and really, man, churn them out with some reasonable regularity, and it not have to be, 5-6 years between solo records. Trust me, I'm already starting on the next one right now.
Good for you, man.
Yeah.
Talk about the title, Memoirs of an Uprising.
I was really proud of all the lyrics on this record, and a lot of the titles were really special. I co-wrote the bulk of these songs with my longtime friend Jim Troglin. And we go way back to the early 90s in the Birmingham scene. That's how we kind of got
back there.
Yeah, yeah. And our wives are best friends, and our kids have grown up together and love each other. So it's great, man. And but I think I had just intended to pick one of these cool song titles and just make that the title of the record. I hadn't given a lot of thought to it. But kind of by accident, I put a sequence together, a running order of the songs, and I was listening down in my truck to the final mixes in that order. And it dawned on me that there are some common themes. There is a thread that kind of runs through the storytelling, and I felt like the tempos were good, the starting with Shivering and going into Dallas, and then Dallas into Down on Me, which is kind of punky and fast, and then it drops down into We Got a System, which is almost Tom Petty influenced, I was like, yeah, man, this is kind of a moment. It is a bit of a statement. And someone suggested Uprising, and I immediately was like, well, I love that word, but that's a Bob Marley record. I couldn't just lift that. And then I reflected back to the lyrics and felt like, well, this could be a guy telling a story, reflecting on some events in his life, like a journal, like some memoirs. So I remember where I was, Craig, turning into our neighborhood off the main road, and that title just popped in my head, Memoirs of an Uprising. And I may have literally laughed out loud. Like, fucking awesome. That is it.
Yeah, that's a great title.
That's a great title. So I'm always proud, man, to stand behind a song lyric and certainly an album title. I feel really, really great about it. Thanks for asking about that.
It's cool. It's a very cool title. I want to talk about a couple of the tracks on there that I really enjoyed. So the first song, Shivering, man, talk about, when I listen to it, it's like, that's a great way to open a show. And I thought to my head, yeah, you could tell this is a guy who's played 1,000 shows because, man, you open up with you got everybody's attention riveted with that song. Is there what was the backstory to that song? It really rocks.
Thank you, brother. Shivering, it was my favorite song early on, even before it was demoed. Credit to Jim Troglin. I had sent him just some free-form lyrics, and as he does sometimes, he'll just take that and kind of put it in his mental blender and just sort of belt something out, and he'll record it on his phone and send it to me. And I remember he was tapping on the table to keep the tempo and almost mumbling. There wasn't really that much of a melody, but there was some phrasing. The way he was saying the words he sent back had a meter to it. And a combination of the meter of those words with him beating on the table, as crazy as it sounds, man, I just heard the whole track fully formed in my brain.
That's awesome.
And he already had that line, out here in space, the space between the lines, the space that blows my mind, has me saying things and doing things that I know ain't right. And the way he said it, I was like, wow, I'm sold. And I heard a melody for it, and man, even vocally, I sang that song in a way I don't know that I've ever sang any other song really, Craig, because I brought in a little falsetto, which seems to be an odd fit for such a driving, almost Phil Rudd, Cliff Williams track. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I just loved everything about it and felt that was an important song. And once we completed that idea, because I worked on it and sent it back to him, and he loved it. And so I think once we had Shivering, I felt like it was really kind of the foundation for everything that came after that. So it's ironic that after all was said and done and written, that still felt like this should be the opening track to this whole body of work. And I couldn't be happier.
No, it's great.
Putting it there and the statement that it makes right out of the gate.
It's tremendous. It's a great way to have a solo album open up. It's just cool. Very cool.
Thank you.
And then another song I really liked on there was "The World Keeps Spinning Round." So the opening, some really pretty guitar lines. I was curious what guitar you're playing on that song, and if you remember, what did you use to make the distortion?
Thank you, bro. Really love that song. It's in my definitely one of my 2 or 3 favorites as well. I just remember thinking I wanted this to be sort of a Neil Young moment. So I own, for all the guitars that I've acquired, it's not a million in any way, Craig. I probably got maybe 30 guitars, which is a lot.
But for a guy who's had your career, it's like very reasonable.
Yeah, it's very reasonable. Exactly. I own one vintage guitar, and my dad bought an ES330, brand new, in 1962.
Wow. So your dad was a player.
My dad still plays to this day, man. My dad's 81, and
that's awesome.
He's got a Gibson Hummingbird that he breaks out and loves to play Merle Haggard songs, and
that's really cool.
Tries to play Chet Atkins songs. But he bought that guitar 2 years before I was born. So that guitar has been in my life from my first memory. And I was so knocked out that when I graduated high school, my dad gave me that guitar.
The 330.
Yeah, 330.
So how is a 330 different than a 335?
The 330 has the P90 pickups, the single coils.
Okay.
It is the Gibson equivalent of the Epiphone Casino that George Harrison and John Lennon played, back on all the Beatles stuff. So a 335 has humbuckers.
Yeah.
The 330 has the P90. So that's the guitar I played on Shivering Shivering. I remember I ran it through a Fender Deluxe Blues DeVille. Sorry. It was a Fender Blues DeVille on the clean channel. And I might have put some pedal in front of it just to give it a little hair. And I remember the melody in that guitar solo. I was absolutely imagining, like, okay, if I could be so bold to think, what would Gary Moore play in this moment right here?
That's the right. Hey, we talked about Jim Rohn. What a typical thing he would say is, dream big, because if you fall short, right? But if you think like, oh, what is the guy down the street going to play, and you fall short, you got a problem, So
right. I was shooting for the moon and stars, man. Gary's definitely in any debate I have about greatest players of all time. He may be the guy, in all honesty. So, man, I cut that guitar solo, not kidding, Craig, with 5 different guitars and 5 different amps. And I had the melody I wanted. I had the notes I wanted. I just wasn't getting the tone that I wanted. And so I'm so grateful to one of my best friends over the last 6 years is the great producer Nick Raskulinecz, who also lives here in Nashville. He produced 2 Black Star Riders records with me and the guys, and he had just done an EP with me 3 years ago, a solo EP. So Nick had agreed to mix this album, Memoirs of an Uprising. And so before we did that first mix, I walked in with my Les Paul and I said, bro, please, can we mic up your JCM 800? Am I right on the model number on those? Is it 2205? 22?
I have no clue.
Marshall. He just has a special one, man. We had used it on everything I had done with him. We had used it on some song. He's got so many badass amps, man. And any amps I brought, he loved those too. So we would just plug them all up and experiment and try stuff. But I knew he had this one killer Marshall. And hand on my heart, bro, he plugged it in, mic'd it up. We got a level. I did one pass. One pass. There it was. I hugged him. I wouldn't let go of him. I was like, that's what the song needed. So beautiful lyric on The World Keeps Spinning Round. Again, I give a lot of credit to Jim. He sent me really that entire lyric. And I had to come up with a better music for it. And I did something I've never done before, Craig. I sat down at the piano. I'm not a piano player, but I can lay out some block chords and maybe first inversion. And I just started messing with some simple chords, man. And I wanted to sit at the piano because on the guitar, my left hand just goes to places that I've been before. And on the piano, E minor, D, and then it goes to the chord change, and I went G, D, first inversion, and then I went to this B7, and it just felt very Paul McCartney to me. And I remember feeling super happy and excited. So I worked on the vocal melody, and I sent it to Jim. And of anything that I sent him during this whole collaboration, I mean, he was literally almost in tears, man. He called me. He goes, bro, this is the best track. He goes, this is absolutely my favorite track.
It's a really pretty song.
So thank you.
I had a question. The lyrics seem pretty intense because like one of the things I had, which of these feelings to hide? I was like, whoa, what's going on there?
Yeah, man. I think it's one of the biggest challenges any of us have when we're trying to work through hard stuff is to really just lay it out. It's the reason people go to counseling and they go to a therapist, and I'm a fan of therapy.
Oh, how could you not be?
I'm a proponent. Don't come and ask me if you should go. Know that I'm going to say yes, you should go, because it's been so great for my life and just managing things better and understanding myself better. And that's part of it, man. It's like when you're in therapy, any good counselor is going to encourage you to talk and to reveal some truths and, to try to make some sense, kind of like, all right, well, how did I get in this predicament, or why did I handle this situation so poorly? You want to get a handle on what your tools are, what your experiences are, or your skill set. And I thought that line was so powerful. Let's decide which of these feelings to hide. Maybe you've got some feelings for someone else that are not healthy. It's not going to work out. What doesn't mean that you don't still have those feelings. So sometimes, man, to get over something, you just got to suppress it for a while and hope that over time you don't think about it so much anymore. And that's what that song is, man. And I've gotten a lot of strength from that lyric because that's exactly how it worked out. Having some feelings and emotions about a particular situation or a particular person. And I guess being smart enough and wise enough to know that, hey, I just got to give this some time and I'll get past it. We'll be able to get past this. We just got to give it some time. So here's a few things we won't talk about. Let's not talk. We know it's there. It's unavoidable to the knowledge of it, but we don't have to bring it up. We don't have to drudge ourselves and each other through this. So let's go past it and talk about something else.
This is like a redemptive album for you, it sounds like, in some ways.
I think in ways that I can't even really quantify, Craig. It really is, man. And maybe I knew that's what it was going to be. Maybe that's what I knew in the beginning. That was ultimately what it was going to be. And it helped me stay focused and stay in it and get it across the finish line. And that's why I'm so proud now, man. I've got this beautiful record, this beautiful artwork, and, getting to talk to cool people like yourselves and reflect on it, man. And I really appreciate you picking out those particular songs because they're definitely two of my favorites.
Well, I think in some ways this is like getting you closure a little bit, this record. Is that accurate?
Very accurate.
Yeah.
Really, really accurate. And I think too, it was an unexpected, bonus is the wrong word. Because again, it's a big event for me to make the decision to step out of a band that I love, working with people that I love, and just decide to follow this path now. I think that redemptive component of this record was so big that it informed that decision in ways that maybe I didn't know at the time. But looking back to last summer, I guess it really was, you know. And I love writing songs in this fashion, you know. And I think collaborating going forward, or even songs that I write on my own, I just think I'm a lot more in touch with how do you pronounce it? The zeitgeist?
The zeitgeist, yeah, that's how you pronounce it.
Yeah, like really the essence of writing and the kinds of songs that I want to write. Anybody can write songs, man. But the people that I look up to that inspire me, that are writers, they just write stuff that blows my mind, man. And it's at some other level. So like you mentioned earlier, man, set those goals high, set the bar really, really high. And it would make me sound like a narcissist if I said the names of the artists that I was aspiring to reach, knowing that I couldn't get there. But guess what? The place that I did land was pretty fucking good.
Yeah, man. Hell yeah.
No, it's good. Like, no one has to validate that for me. I needed so much validation earlier in my career. I don't need that anymore, man. I know it's quality. It has, it's me working through some of my stuff or seeing someone else go through something. And I put that inside the lyric and it makes for a great story or a better story.
There's I think all of us sometimes need permission to do something, even something that we don't need permission, but I think this record is giving you permission to do a bunch of other stuff that you probably, that's the feeling I'm getting, that like you got permission and you're okay now with this stuff, man. So
that's great, Craig. I'm gonna give you credit for that one, man. That's really what you said. That's great.
Yeah, it seems like that.
That's the case. I appreciate that. I've got permission to be
whatever the fuck you want.
Yeah, I don't have to be a guitar player in Alice Cooper anymore. It was fun and it was great, but I wasn't writing my songs. I wasn't telling my truth, and so I sleep really good at night right now, man.
Dude, I'm gonna ask you. I could talk to you forever. I gotta ask you two more questions, and then tell people where to get their hands on this awesome new record you got. Happiest moment or time in your life?
It's right now.
Cool.
Without hesitation, man. The happiest time in my life is right now. I so appreciate the power of social media, particularly a format like Facebook, where people connect with old friends and they talk about the old days and they talk about all kinds of stuff, man, from the past. I enjoy Facebook, but I don't live there, and I don't want to live there. I want to live in the future. I want to go forward, press ahead. So wild that you just asked me that question, because it's like I almost knew someone would ask me that at some point, and it just happened to be you. my answer was, as you could tell, pretty immediate and without hesitation. It's right now, man. It is the happiest time of my life. I'm so integrated with my family, with my kids, with my wife, with our home here. I'm doing quality work every day. Some of it's a lot of right brain stuff right now, man. Getting tour dates lined up and rehearsing the band, and I got to go look at a trailer that I'm going to buy so we can haul our gear out.
Awesome, man. Those are good problems to have, man. Those are nice. Yeah.
Great cool things to have on your desk to tackle. But I'm also, like I mentioned earlier, already gathering stuff for another, just more songs. Let's not call it an album yet, but just more songs.
Yeah.
I'm actually got a session with my old friend Marty Fredrickson.
Oh, that is cool, man.
We're going to get together and kick the tires a little bit.
You got on his calendar.
Yeah, man. Well, over because he lives here too, man. And
okay.
We see each other often, and we, man, he's too much a major part of my life. But I also know the tricks that you have to play to get a little time with Marty. That guy is busy, and he is so sought after. He's got people reaching out to him that would blow both our minds.
That's awesome, man.
I mean, if he said, "Hey, man, I'm writing with Bette Midler today," I wouldn't be shocked. It wouldn't, nothing would surprise me. He's at the top level of his craft. But that's all we need, man. I need 45 minutes, bro. I don't need your whole morning. Just lay a couple things on you. Let's see what we burp out of that.
Hey, don't worry. He's going to be telling someone next week, "Hey, man, I'm busy with Damon Johnson today." Hey,
it's all love, man. It's all good work, and it's all for the common goal, man. Just continuing to express ourselves. So it's good.
Last question. Biggest change in your personality over the last 10 years, and how much of this has been intentional and how much is just a natural part of aging?
Woo! Boom! What a question, Mr. Craig. What's interesting, man, is that it always makes me feel good when I know in Black Star Writers, especially Scott Gorham and Robbie Crane, they would always comment about how I'm so laid back. Like, man, you're just so cool. Like, everything just seems to run off your back. And I don't view myself that way at all, Craig. I feel very reactive sometimes. Someone will say something, or it will be like, "Hey, by the way, this is happening." And I'll just get like really 0 to 60 super fast, and my heartbeat goes up. But it's important that I share that, because the one thing that has changed me in the last 10 years is I have learned to hold that expression, not to just blurt it out, not to go to social media and start venting. And it's the same with my family. It's the same with my art. It's the same with my friends. If you give any situation a little bit of time, you certainly can't do business with someone if you enter into it emotionally. You have to think clearly. You have to make informed decisions, and your words carry such currency.
Yeah, words are very important, man.
And I don't mean to be careful or to be paranoid, but I've just gotten better at letting that heart rate drop, calm down, reassess. And I can't tell you how many times in recent years I've thought literally, I'm really glad I gave myself a minute there, because I would have said something totally differently 6 hours ago than what I just said right now. And, sometimes, man, it's great to send an email rather than a phone call, so you can gather those words and express yourself. Get everything you want to say across, but do it in a way that might give it a better chance of being well received.
Yeah.
Anybody can throw rocks, dude. It's a maturity, I guess, to be able to bring people closer and to bring ideas into action by being more thoughtful. So I can't promise it's going to always be that way, man. I'm still that hillbilly from Alabama.
And you got a lot of, I got to tell you, you've got a lot of everybody I've talked to from Alabama, and you got to understand, I'm a guy from the Bronx.
Yeah.
Everybody I've talked to from Alabama is so warm, so nice, and like so just like very, I told my wife, I said, babe, because I was maybe going to Nashville this spring or summer, I said, I think I might stop up to see some guys in Alabama because these guys are so nice. And she's like, what, are you becoming a hillbilly? I was like, no, it's these guys are just so nice, man. It's just, I don't know this. And so I could appreciate your enthusiasm for all things Alabama, man.
I'll tell you this, if you're referring to some of the guys that we mentioned earlier,
yeah.
I mean, those guys have been cool and quality Craig, I'm talking about, I used to go see Bill Hines and Kelvin Holly in 1984,
Wow.
85. I was a kid. I don't even know if I was in my 20s yet. And, they were so nice to me. They would answer all my stupid questions. And, role models, man, guys that inform me and help get me going. And yeah, they're just Alabama guys, just like me. And I would think maybe we would all have in common is that we feel like music is the thing that gave us a broader view of the world. Music has taken us all to other countries and just so many experiences that a lot of people we went to school with have yet to have.
Sure.
And may never have. And it affects your worldview. It affects your view of yourself and who you are and who you want to be.
Dude, let me tell people, first of all, I can't thank you enough. I really appreciate your time. You're very generous with it. And I really appreciate you being so open and candid. And thank you so much for coming on the show, man. I really enjoyed this. And I look forward to talking with you again sometime.
Craig, the pleasure was mine, man. I was not prepared for this. I knew it was going to be great because our communication before the interview was first class, man. You're so together, and I appreciate that. But
thank you.
This was another level. I don't know when I've enjoyed, maybe ever, man. This was really special. I appreciate your thoughtfulness, and it's fun to talk about all this stuff, man. The past, the present, the future, the good and the bad.
The good and the bad, man.
Really
yeah. Let me tell people where to find Memoirs of an Uprising. First of all, it's Damon Johnson's major solo record, Memoirs of an Uprising. It's a really great record. I enjoy it totally. His playing on there, and we didn't talk about a lot of stuff, but he's a hell of a player. He's like a shredder and a melodic guy, but he don't shred just to. It's a great record, man. It's not a guitar record. It's a song record. It's got great melodies, but there's some damn good guitar work on there. So here's where to find the record. Go to DamonJohnson.com. He's got it on vinyl and CD there. And he told me that if you purchase it from there, it's autographed by him. So, go there and do your thing. And, again, he'll autograph the record for DamonJohnson.com. Also, he's got a great back catalog of everything else he's done there. If you're into streaming, the record is on Spotify and Apple Music. And also go to his YouTube channel. It's Damon Johnson Official. He's got some really cool stuff there. You could find him on social media and Facebook at Damon Johnson Fans, on Instagram at Official Damon Johnson, where he promises not to post pictures of food. And
I just put up food at the Super Bowl party. My wife made an awesome spread.
I'm just kidding. No, I'm just kidding. It always boggles my mind when someone says "Oh, here's my dinner." Like, I would never be so fucking presumptuous to think anybody gives a shit about what I'm eating. I mean, I don't give a shit about it. Here's my, whatever. Like, I just find that weird. Maybe it's just old age.
It's weird, and I only do it to heap the deserved praise on my wife, who was an incredible cook and party planner.
Yeah, but that's a situation. That's like, I put a picture one time. I had a whole big thing of steaks on the grill because all my kids were over. That was clearly like an event I was enjoying, not like, right. Oh, look at my fucking steak. I mean, I just don't understand that. Like, how would that thought get into your mind? Like, oh man, I think everybody wants to see these fish tacos. I don't fucking understand that, man. Sorry, man. I don't mean to go on a rant, but it could be old age. I don't know. I don't get it. Anyway, on Twitter, Damon's pretty active on Twitter, actually, and that's a place where you could engage with them. It's Damon J Official on Twitter. Let me go through this again instead of my rant about fish tacos. Instagram, Official Damon Johnson. Facebook, Damon Johnson Fans. YouTube, go check active channel, Damon Johnson Official, and check out the new record, Memoirs of an Uprising, on DamonJohnson.com. Autograph vinyl, autograph CD, all his back catalog stuff is there. And you're touring to support this now soon, right?
I am, Craig. It's just a lot of spot dates, which is exactly how I wanted it and exactly how I like it. We are going out as direct support for our friends in the Winery Dogs in May. go to my website, go to their website. You'll see those dates. But I think we're up to like a half a dozen shows, man. We're going to hit Milwaukee, Chicago, Nashville. We're going to play right here in my backyard, man. We're doing that date as well. So, some festival opportunities coming in the summer. But it is, I'm looking at it like perpetual performing, One of the things that attracted me to Nashville is how these guys go out on the weekends and play.
Yeah, they do a lot of weekend days.
And they're home with their families, the first part of the week. That is for me, man. Everything about that is for me. And I love living here. And, again, man, thank you for giving me this time to talk about this album and certainly this moment in my career. I'm really, I feel kind of peaceful, man, at everything that's happening. A lot of hard work yet to be done, but I just feel like that work is channeled in the best possible place it could be. So
very cool.
Thank you, Craig.
Thank you for everything, man. I appreciate it. The pleasure's mine. Everybody, thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this interview, please share it with a friend on your social media channels. We certainly appreciate your support with that. Thanks very much to Damon Johnson for spending time with us. I really appreciate that. And if you haven't checked out even the old back catalog of his stuff, it's just phenomenal. I started listening to a bunch of Brother Kane stuff when I was prepping for this interview, man. It's some beautiful, really great quality stuff there, man.
Thank you. Thank you.
Make sure you go to everyonelovesguitar.com, sign up to get on our newsletter list so you and I can connect. And most important, remember that happiness is a choice, so choose wisely. Be nice, right? Go play your guitar and have fun. Till next time, peace and love, everybody. I'm out. We hope you enjoyed this show. If you did, subscribe to the Everyone Loves Guitar podcast, and you can do this online at everyonelovesguitar.com or on iTunes. And if you like the show, please leave us a 5-star positive review. The more 5-star reviews we get, the higher our show ranks, and higher rankings mean we get to continue speaking with cool, interesting guests on our show. We'll see you on the next episode, and until then, keep playing your guitar and have fun making music.